Please tell about yourself, your place of birth, and your journey to spiritual life.
So I was born in New York in the United States. I never felt I belonged to the normal social life. And when I went to university, I had a big crisis and became very depressed because I thought everything that people want wouldn't give me happiness. And somebody said, you should go to the American Brahmin bookstore. It's the name of a bookstore in this town. That bookstore was the student of Paul Brunton who had this spiritual bookstore. So that was when I entered the spiritual path. And we're both psychologists, and we both translate Paul Brunton into English and Portuguese.
Well, I born in Brazil, and in some Catholic family, even and my experience was since a younger girl. I like contemplate, meditating. I didn't pass through struggles to find the path because I felt my life was a flow. Like my present moment was like only a completion about something that always was there with me. Then, during my lifetime, I became a psychologist because that I would like to know more about people, human beings, spiritual thinkers. And then when I moved to United States in 1995, I could say my path really became more clear and more powerful because I met a few different gurus, one Maharashi like Premha, and I met Trigueirinho from Brazil, Paul Brunton. I met Paul Brunton before Micha-El, before I met Paul Brunton and many other teachers. And then one day we met, and decided to do this work together to diffuse Paul Brunton.
How did you come in contact with PB's writings? You have met him, no?
Right. So my teacher was a student of Paul Brunton, so we studied his books. Like we would all read the book as a group and have a big discussion. And what does this mean? What does this mean? And we also studied Advaita Vedanta, Patanjali Yoga. My teacher, his idea was you study everything and you see the truth behind. So we studied Buddhism, Hinduism, alchemy, Greek, Platonic philosophy, but very strong emphasis on PB. Paul Brunton called himself PB. So PB was living the last 30, 40 years of his life in Switzerland as a hermit. And he was writing these inspirations, and he would give interviews, but very little. Some people say one of the reasons he was in Switzerland was to see the Alps, remind him of the Himalayas. But also he had many very important students, like kings and queens from Europe, and politicians and scientists and maharajas. So Geneva is the United Nations, so they would make an excuse. You would say, I'm going to a meeting in Geneva for this, but then you go take the train to see PB. So he was receiving people. And my teacher, Anthony, said to him, PB, you need help. You're older, you need some help. And at that time I was living in the spiritual center. They called us monks, but we weren't really monks. I mean, not in the Indian sense. He said, why don't you let the monks come take care of you? So I got to go there to Switzerland. I was just his assistant. I just helped him, cook food, go shopping. He gave me work to do. Then he visited my spiritual center in New York that I was part of, that she became part of, Wisdom's Goldenrod. He came there and gave interviews. And then in 1980, at the end of his life, he had a hernia and he needed somebody to help him. So they invited me to go. He asked me to come take care of his body while he was recovering. So I physically saw him 3 times because of my teacher. So PB is my Mahaguru.
What are your experiences? You were his personal assistant, no?
Yes.
What is his personal assistant?
Yes. So I did a lot of work for him when I...
One or two experiences with him.
Sure. First of all, I did certain things for him from a distance. Like if you read the original books, they have typographical errors in them. So we did a big project and we sent him a list of all the mistakes in all the books. And then he could ask the publisher to fix this, to fix this. So I did work for him from a distance, but then I was with him physically these 2 times in Switzerland for like 3 weeks each time. What I would say is this. If you go like in the Himalayas and you sit alone, the silence is so deep, it's loud. It's like dense. That was what it was like to be with him. The silence was so profound. Like going maybe if you sit on the bottom of the ocean. I never did that, right? And then across the lake was Mont Blanc, this big white mountain in France, across from Switzerland. So it was like, there's the silence of the mountain, and here's the silence of PB. He also had a personality, because the sages still live in a body, so he had an English personality, he had tea, he was very practical, those things. But the other thing was, I experienced this love that was indescribable. I can't even describe it. It was like the most beautiful love of my life. It isn't what we think of as love. It was just some exquisite, wonderful tenderness.
How many years you were with him?
Not years. I was with him in 1975 for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. Then he came to our spiritual center in 1977, and I had 2 or 3 interviews with him with other people, and we saw him in group. Then in 1980, when he had the hernia, I came back for 3 or 4 weeks, and the second time I was living in his apartment, because I was like, he would ring a bell in the middle of the night if he had to go to the bathroom, and I would go help him, and I would take care of his body. She has a different experience.
You have
Yes.
also met him, no?
No, I never met him, but I want to speak from the side of whom never saw him physically, but that had this great experience telepathically and recognizing the teachings, when I start reading him. I know that he always said that isn't so important to meet him physically. The more important is really the telepathic contact, correct, through the books, through the teachings. I want to speak from this side, from this aspect of those that has many, I don't know how many followers, many readers that never saw him, but I'm pretty sure they are so close to him in the heart. When I start reading Paul Brunton, it's like if I was speaking with my own self. Every word he wrote, for me, it's so familiar. I never, I found the teachings because, as I told you before, I had different teachers, including Trigueirinho from Brazil, Yogananda. I became a student from self-realization. I studied 3 years. I had different teachers, but one in Italy, also Raphael. But when I met Paul Brunton, I could say, when I met him, his teachings, for me that was the bloom, I say, that is it. And everything I read, they say, oh my gosh.
How do you search in there?
Yes, I say, oh my gosh, but that I know that is true. I know that. I recognize it through me. All my life I thought this, and now somebody is telling me this, and when recognize the truth. But you need somebody outside you to tell you what you already know inside. That was amazing discovery. Micha-El could tell you how I was amazed every day reading and want to be more and more in the silence.
So much happiness.
So much happiness. Then I want to speak from this aspect, the people who never physically met him, but as you both, correct, have, this recognition. And also Ramana, because now I went to Thiru for the first time. I couldn't stop crying when I saw the mountain. I understood everything PB passed through, there with Ramana, because Ramana is, unbelievable also.
Please tell briefly the activities of Paul Brunton Philosophical Foundation.
Sure. So When Paul Brunton left the body, his copyright of his books was given to his son, who was named Kenneth Hurst. Kenneth Thurston Hurst is named after one of PB's first teachers in England. And so Kenneth already was involved with this spiritual center of wisdom's goldenrod that Anthony Damiani founded. So he came to us and he created a foundation to preserve the writings of Paul Brunton. Because the notebooks were just like all these ring binders with pages in them, and someone had to publish them.
30,000.
Enormous, yes. So
30,000.
So we had a spiritual group of like 60 people. So we read them all and we gave them little assignments like this one belongs here, this one belongs here. And then there were two people that PB chose to be the editors, and they made the final decisions. So you might, let's say you're doing the quotes on meditation. You organize them all into themes. You say, this is number 1, this is number 2. You give it a rank, and then they choose. And these notebooks is only like 40 or 50% of the total notebooks. So there was also a publishing company created before that called Larson Publications. And that was to publish spiritual books, because there were many spiritual books my teacher Anthony was interested in that were out of print. So he wanted a publishing company to publish these books. And so there was a Swedish student of Paul Brunton who had a company in Sweden called Larson Publications. So he made a US branch. So we made a deal. We said to Kenneth Hurst, if you give the copyright, Robert Larson will give the publishing company. So if you look at the first books, it says copyright Kenneth Hurst. But then in the end it became, so we had a foundation, I was on the board of the foundations, and our job was to publish the books. Mm-hmm. And Larson Publications publishes the books, but they publish other books, not only PB. So the PB Foundation is really to keep PB's legacy alive. Because like Grant said, and like he said, you can contact him through his books. You can enter into contact with his mind by trying to understand him with your mind. And we believe he has a special dharma. Because, for instance, there's many brilliant swamis that give teachings on Veda Vedanta. We follow some Ramakrishna swamis. They're great. But you have to know Hinduism. You have to know Sanskrit words. You have to have a certain temperament to come to God through that path. PB gives a different path. The Western normal, quote, spiritual person who doesn't know Atman and Brahman and Saguna, Nirguna, Samadhi, all these things, he puts it in simple English. And like you, he's a journalist. So he really understands the importance of the correct expression. The other thing I'll just add is, PB never says he's a sage, he never says he's a teacher, he never says he's a guru. He says, I'm a researcher. But everything he wrote is by his own experience. Yeah. So if you read if you read what he says about Nirvikalpa Samadhi, you could feel that he had that.
Yes. He said his teachings was a pioneer because it was a synthesis of some ancient and modern teachings. He said, they say that, for example, when he went to India for the first time, he met Ramana. He didn't have any questions. He knew all answers. But he said, what I'm going to say for Westerners? How I explain to them what I'm feeling, for example, the self-realization. You don't need words because Ramana saying, who am I? But he said, I have to have a way to explain to them. Then, it is why, as Micha-El said, what he said, I will use his own words, Paul Brunton. This I may say, that my work, true, has always been based on first-hand knowledge of what I wrote about and not on hearsay or tradition. My researches were made not only amongst modern books and ancient texts and living men. They were also made in the mysterious witness of my own consciousness. I am a researcher. That is my special job. Then I go on to convert the results of my research into notes and reports, into analysis and reflections. Later, I draw upon this material for my publishing rights. But every word he said is by his own experience. That is the important also for us, because by mistakes, by asserts, by searching, he teaches us a path with words that we could understand in our rational mind and in the normal life, because how could you go to the Himalayas if you live in New York, Then how you be spiritual seeker in New York, how could you be enlightened in New York City? He said this is possible for us.
And for
You
example,
both were psychologists.
We are both
we are.
psychologists.
So is there okay. What is the connection between psychology and spirituality? Could you please explain?
Yes.
well, unfortunately, most psychologists would say none.
Or maybe spiritual people think,
But that's-
or maybe some spiritual people say isn't necessary
There's two
psychology.
mistakes.
Both are psychologists.
Both,
Yeah,
both.
but there's two
Yeah, we
mistakes.
both, yeah.
The psychologists don't believe in spirituality, many.
And many spiritual
People
people don't
don't-
believe in psychology.
We call it in
Correct?
U.S.,
Yeah.
we say the spiritual bypass. Like,
Yeah.
let's say I have some emotional problem. I get angry very easily, or I'm cranky, or I'm very judgmental. Of course, I'm human. I have everything. Some people think, well, if I go see this guru and I meditate, I don't have to worry about those things. When
But
Grant
you
said
have-
the philosophic star, you have to clean your personality. You have to work. You have to transform yourself, because even if the light is there, if the window is
Yeah.
dirty,
It is why Paul Brunton say for the quest you have two approaches, the long path and the short path. The long path is self-improvement, self-transformation, purification, effort.
Is that
The long path.
that is the we call sadhana?
Sadhana, yes,
yes.
sadhana.
You need tapas.
Sadhana. You need
fire.
tapas, you need sadhanas, yes. And the short path is the identification with the real being you are, identification with the Atma, That is the short path. Identify yourself with the Atma and remember Atma all the time, as if he's your lover, he said, when you are in love with somebody, like don't forget never the lover, The lover is always in your background.
PB met Carl Jung.
Carl
Yeah,
Jung,
we met
yes.
Carl Jung also.
He met
That's a
Carl
different
Jung,
story.
yeah.
But
And
look,
Carl Jung say, why I need to go in another guru? Because all then
Jung
is,
had a chance to see Maharishi.
is all then as
He said it's an
archetype.
archetype. He said if you see one, you've seen them all. You don't need to.
Yeah.
But let's go back. Let's say I'm cranky.
Yeah.
Let's say I
But
get irritated.
psychology is so important. We saw so many spiritual people who really are stuck in their spiritual enlightenment, process.
Not enlightenment, in this spiritual
Spiritual
development.
development, because they are into the complexes. They have so many complexes. They have so many
Psychological
misunderstanding, Or even, I give you some example. Somebody lost a husband, and is crying because the husband. They say, well, but God wanted. Okay, God wanted. Okay, we don't discuss. But if you don't do your work of the lost, you are stuck in your path, because that suffering, that cry that you are crying every day, all the time, and try repress that. Don't let you to go in another step in your development.
So the next time somebody dies, you go through all the same thing because you didn't finish.
Yeah.
So to go back to your question, psychology and spirituality are different, but they are both necessary parts of the same, let's say, universal sadhana. Because if we really want to be enlightened and transform ourselves, we can avoid psychology, but we have to understand that there's a God, there's a soul, there's devas, there's a philosophy. So it's really, from our point of view,
Recently in Trivandrum this happened. One parent, they had only one son.
Yeah.
He died due to some illness.
Yes.
on the first anniversary, both the parents committed suicide.
Yeah,
They
amen.
couldn't withstand his loss.
Yeah.
Right.
I will give it to one quote that express so well, illustrate what your question. He say, it is not enough to attain knowledge of the soul. Any mystic may do that. It is necessary to attain clear knowledge. Only the philosophic mystic may do that. This emphasis on clarity is important. It implies a removal of all the obstructions in feeling, the complexes in the mind, and obfuscations in ego which prevent it. When this is done, the aspirant beholds true as it really is. But you see how he say complexes in the mind is psychological work. You have to, obfuscation in the ego. All these belong to some psychological aspect we have. You can
And
avoid.
if you read about his life, Ganeshan, who's the great nephew of Ramana, who was in
Ganeshan.
charge of the ashram. If you meet an avatar, of course you touch their feet, you bring them fruit, but you could never be an avatar. Well, maybe you could, but I could never be an avatar. But Ganeshan said, PB showed us that it's possible for all of us normal people to become enlightened.
Yeah.
So that is a great, PB is a symbol that it's, and you could read, you can
In his
read,
own words.
you could read, PB says, I was depressed, PB wanted to commit suicide one time.
When he was
I'll tell you the story quick, because it tells about his mind. He went through a really big crisis and he was going to commit suicide. And he said, but what will happen? So he wasn't Maharishi. He couldn't just lie down and die on the floor and then he knew he was the Atman. He said, I'll go to the library. What happens after death?
in
In
London.
the British Library.
In London.
He goes to the library and he studies. He goes, oh, I'm not going to die anyway. No point in committing suicide. That's his mind. So look what Ganeshan says.
Ganesha.
That self-realization can be attained by you and me is amply proved by Paul Brunton's life. He threw open the doors for seekers all over the world to know that there is light.
In between, you can also ask questions.
That PB, that suicide thing when he was a teenager.
Teenager.
Not
Yeah.
after he started writing
Right.
books.
No, when he's a
Teenager. He
teenager.
was a teenager. Yeah.
So that it was inside.
Or another
Yeah.
example is,
Yeah.
in one
he was a
point-
teenager, but as a Western mind, like British mind, he say, "I'm going to the library. London has this beautiful library. Let me search how I could die.
and
And
see-
from there, we could say, correct, he start his quest, because after that he start his quest,
Became a
because
spiritual
he
seeker.
became,
Yeah.
he perceived.
But even then, he still had depression and rejection. So, Ramana was PB's guru. But Ramana doesn't go into detail to answer all the questions. So
wasn't his dharma.
it wasn't his job. And if you had the karma to meet him, that was all you needed. The fire's prepared, Ramana's the match, poof. So PB had all these questions, and Ramana wasn't giving him answers. But when he published the Secret India, he became famous all over India. So then he met other people. So he was very close with the Maharaja of Mysore. And if you read the books, the Maharaja of Mysore gave him retreats in different parts of India where he wrote some of the books. And Maharaja had a study group in his court of V. Subramanya Iyer, who was a great classical Vedantist. He was initiated by Shankar of Sringeri. He had a study group with Ramakrishna monks studying all the Vedanta texts, and PB was part of that. So in the next phase of PB's, let's say, intellectual development, he studied classical Indian philosophy with a guru who had a deeper, because we know, like in any religion, it becomes superficial, like, oh, it's all Maya, this doesn't matter, it's an illusion. It's not Maya, it's God, it's Shakti, it's real. But I think I don't know the real. I think that the rope is a snake, right? You know that story. So I run away because there's a snake, but it's a rope. But the rope is real, but what I think is an illusion. So P.B. had to clarify all these things for himself in order to write about it in English. And then he wrote the book, A Hidden Teaching Beyond Yoga. And people got upset at him because they said, you're rejecting yoga. They had all these misunderstandings. He said, it's not rejecting yoga, there's something more. It's beyond. He says, yoga is a step, not a stop.
In one of the emails, you have written that India moves in the direction of being more westernized. To be. Could you please explain it further?
What is?
That India is becoming more westernized.
Uh-huh.
Look, like people say these like I was once watching a movie of Kumbh Mela, and some Swami says, India is the country of spirituality, and America is the country of technology. It's not that simple. America
No.
has spirituality and India has technology. Well, India's
Yeah.
becoming a technological giant.
Yeah.
So many Indians are losing their own tradition.
And they have corrected. It's like the philosophical star. If you have so much in one side, in one point,
Prompted him to
You know,
observe that India
yes.
is moving towards
I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. Well, first of all, in the U.S., you call the 800 number, somebody answer in India.
Yeah.
I call it 4 in the afternoon about a problem in my computer, and someone in Mumbai is answering at 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's obvious, but if you talk to young Indians in the U.S., like I was working in university, I was talking to some young girl from India. I said, do you know the Bhagavad Gita? She makes a face. She says, I think my grandmother has that book. Isn't that sad? How sad is
Some
that?
younger women don't know. Yes. Yes. And we were now in the airport coming here. In which airport in United States? No, from United States
we
to
were
here.
going from
No, from United States
we're
to
going
Delhi.
from Denver to New Delhi.
Delhi.
From Newark to New
And
Delhi.
we sat with a few younger Indians,
They're working on
younger,
their computers,
like
right from-
they all are studying in United States. They are there studying. Anyone knew anything about spiritual things or Ramana? Nobody. They didn't know.
Did you ever hear
Zero.
of Maharishi?
Zero.
So this
In
is-
the 20s, you know.
So
Yeah.
this is what I think.
But yeah.
If you go to some of these like really inspired swamis who teach Vedanta, you don't need PB. But if you're this westernized Indian who thinks that's all silly, PB will bring you back to your home.
We are coming to that.
Okay.
How can the modern mind connect with the profound spiritual traditions?
How what?
How can the modern mind connect with
modern
the...
man
The modern
connect
man.
with profound spiritual traditions?
How they could connect? Okay, in the daily life, you say. Well, one thing Paul Brunton teach that wherever you go, wherever you could meditate. Meditation is important, you know. No, isn't enough by itself because it's a mean, not the end. But meditation is important. Also to live your life spiritually. What means? He has some paragraphs that he said.
They will ask, what is the benefit of following a spiritual tradition?
What?
The modern people know. They don't have the time.
What value does it have?
The spiritual tradition, what's the value in the modern life, is still the same, you know. The spirituality never is older, it never renew. Like in the modern or in the ancient times, the spirit, because I ask it differently, what is the purpose of our life? Why you are here? You know, I think it doesn't matter if in the past or in the future, you know, we have first to release the ignorance.
There is no time to think about
No
it.
time, correct?
We were reading about the Shirdi Sai Baba. So he said, I give them what they want because I hope that one day they will want what I want to give them. So let's say you're a businessman and you only care about making money. I will tell you, if you meditate, you'll be a better businessman.
Yeah.
Because the science shows you will be calmer, you'll make better decisions. So there's two benefits.
Yeah.
One is that it really helps you
Yeah.
have a better life.
Yeah.
Then you need people to explain it. So
Yeah.
that's why you need Paul Brunton,
Yeah.
you need the modern swamis. Because the truth, the Santana Dharma is eternal.
Yeah.
But it needs to be expressed in a modern way. So one reason they don't relate to it is because all they hear is all these Sanskrit words
Yeah.
that they don't understand.
The benefit is always is there because it's the only purpose in life, only the reason we are here. But how we wake up for this reality, that is the point. Because, for example, people through suffering, one day they perceive the importance of the ancient tradition. Sometimes, more common is through suffering, correct? But the importance always is there. But we are, by ignorance, we don't know when we're born, or takes a little time to wake up for the quest. That is why they call the quest, correct?
But even
Any questions? You can also add.
You can add, no, but for example, another thing is you live by example. So, for instance, we have families, we have nephews and nieces. They see there's something different about us. They see we're not like their parents. I'm not criticizing anyone, but they're normal people who have a normal life. And they become curious. Then they ask you about meditation. They say, why are you a vegetarian? So, like Gran said, it's already inside of you and it wants to come out. So it needs a hook to pull it out.
Yeah, exactly.
You were telling that PB's philosophy incorporates metaphysics, mysticism, and practical acts.
Yeah.
Please elaborate.
So you want to say?
Yeah, well,
The three things:
yes.
metaphysics, mysticism, and practical acts.
Yeah, he called philosophy because he said philosophy is a term that's so ample and general to be possessed by somebody. Then he called philosophy because he didn't know how to call what he has to present. He say philosophy is the best word because rescue the meaning, the deeper meaning that love wisdom from the ancient Greek, ancient Greek philosophy. He said, but he said, I read one paragraph to explain. In the first stage of the progress, we learn to stand aside from the world and to still our thoughts about it. This is the mystical stage. We are mystical because we silent the thoughts, control the mind. Next, we recognize the world as being but a series of ideas within the mind. This is the mentalism metaphysic stage. That is the mentalism mystical, mentalist metaphysic stage. When we understand what is the world, what is this creation, is so many ideas in the mind, the word-mind idea. That is why he called that is important. And then finally, we return to the world activity without reacting mentally to its suggestions, working disinterestedly and knowing always that all is one. That is the philosophic stage. Because that he called philosophic mysticism. Because we need to understand philosophy in the way he speaks what is philosophy, metaphysics and mentalism. We have to understand these two things in order to be philosophic, It's beyond philosophic mysticism, it is, beyond mysticism.
What is the practical action he is suggesting?
He said, no, the practical, he said, it is not only apply the principles of philosophy, not only try to do the best in the world, but realize the divinity that you are in everyday life. He said that is the real, challenge and the real practice. But for that, he said meditation, he said 100 times a day. He said pray all the time in the correct meaning of prayer. What means really prayer? He give you a little recipe, as a cake, a recipe for to make a cake. He say prayer constantly, meditate 100 times, something as that, and thinking in the over self all the time.
Let me say, like for instance, you are a journalist. So you could write about sports, but you write about spiritual things. He's a travel writer. He could say, go to the spa, they give you a great massage. Whatever you're doing, you bring your spiritual life into it as a service. Now, let me give an example.
Bringing spiritual life into the
Everyday life.
How could you please explain or elaborate on it? What do you mean by bringing spiritual life into your work?
Live the truth.
You
Live
the
the
truth.
truth in
No,
every
but also-
moment, you know.
Let's go back to some kind of person makes me angry. So I want to say something bad to them. I have to stop myself. I have to say, why am I angry? Well, my father had a problem with anger. But then she gave you the short path. I say, this is not really me. This is just my thoughts. I'm light. I'm love. How could I relate to this person through love? Now, PB gives you very specific exercises in the books that you can do to develop these things. But it's also, let's go back. You have a professor in college. He's a great intellectual. He talks about Brahman and Samadhi, but he never had Samadhi, so it's dry. Then you go to some mystic in a cave who goes in Samadhi all the time, and they have the experience, but they can't explain.
Yeah.
That's metaphysics of truth. You can explain, and mysticism you have experience. PB says you need both.
Yeah.
And then when you have both, you serve the divine. How do you serve the divine? Depends on the person. PB was the
Yeah.
PB was the secret advisor to kings and queens, and he knew Heisenberg. He knew all the top scientists. Werner Heisenberg, right? He had Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and he
Yeah.
didn't know what happened. Who
Yeah.
helped him understand what happened?
Yeah.
PB.
Because look, the practical, how you practice in everyday life. For example, I am speaking now with you here. How is my awareness? I am speaking with consciousness, I am speaking with awareness. I am speaking if I am the overself, because PB teach this exercise, for example. Every day you walk, if you are the overself, how do you walk? Because you are going to walk differently if you I walk as I am Gran. I walk in some way. But if I say I am the overself, I walk in different way, correct? If I am doing dishes, cleaning the house, how I am. That is because we aren't become enlightened tomorrow. We are enlightened now if we practice, because what really don't allow us to live the truth. It's because this busy mind, this lack of awareness about who we are. But if you know who we are and we practice every day the presence in each activity of our life, even to resolve some social problem, how I resolve some social situation if I know who am I. If I don't know who am I will fight with somebody. But if I know who am I will use my correct intelligence, my awareness to resolve that, because PB said, every event in your life came for some lesson to you, for learn something. And you have to put attention in this more than to read a book, Then I feel that is a good practice. Difficult, but important.
Yeah, one question on your behalf. If somebody who is starting off on the spiritual path, so which books of PB would you recommend?
So, The Secret Path is really good because he gives you what is meditation. The Quest of the Overself is really good because he gives you the self-inquiry of Ramana in an English form. Like, I'm not the body, I'm not the emotions, etc. The notebooks, we are saying, is like an encyclopedia. So the notebooks, you don't read like volume 1, then volume 2. You look at the table of contents and you see, I'm having a problem in meditation. This book would help me. I have a problem with someone at work. In other words...
In which volume is the appendix? In the 16 volume.
Yeah, in other words, in the 16 volumes, each one has a table of contents.
In the volume
Notebook.
16.
And in volume 16 has all the table of contents of all 16 volumes. So I look there and I see, oh, I'm having a health problem. I read about health. So in answer to the question, from the point of view of the notebooks, you read what your heart wants to know at this moment. But from the point of view of the early books, there's really rich, beautiful. Like in the Inner Reality, he talks about asceticism. So let's say you're trying to decide, like, is it okay to have sex?
Yeah.
You read what he says about that.
Even for whom is Christian, like if they go to the inner reality, they will see how PB interpret the teachings of, Jesus. It's so beautiful because it's so deeper. I feel even for Christian it's so important because you understand it deeper and what Jesus the Christ came to do. And I suggest also the wisdom of the over self, because this book really is like these two books beyond hidden yoga and the wisdom of the over self is so important for you to understand who is this I, what is the dream work, what is even how to die, what is the dead state. He is really profound. You could find it.
Those two books is what he called the metaphysics of truth.
Yes.
And that was written under the influence of Subramanya Iyer.
The
So
philosopher.
after he was with Ramana, and he wrote about mysticism and meditation and self-inquiry, he still had all these questions. And Subramanya gave him the intellectual framework. So then the first 10 books, those two books are written more under that influence of a different guru.
Yeah.
How many languages PB's books are available?
Over 15.
Yeah.
And you are doing the translation in Spanish and Portuguese.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
In almost all languages. And how people are receiving it about these sales.
It's so wonderful. We are like in these few years, we are devote so much of our time to diffusing PB in South America. We are work with the foundation in collaboration. They ask us to represent there in South America the work, and we are translate. We found an important publisher named Ashna in Brazil. And they are amazing. Now we are preparing some book about the illuminated mind, the illumination, including some the own illumination of Paul Brunton, what he spoke about his own illumination, will be published this year. We are working also in the Secret India that will be republished in Portuguese, new edition. And also the perspectives, the first notebook. We recently found a publishing in Spain. The first book with this publisher will be now released soon. Is about the short path to enlightenment. Will be published also in Spanish. And we are dedicated, much of our life and time now for this. We create a non-profit organization in Brazil to help our work. And
I would say this, many of his books were published in some of the Indian languages besides Hindi. So we can send you a list. I don't know if any is in Malayalam, but it's very possible.
Telugu I have seen.
Malayalam I haven't.
But I could send you the list.
Somebody got in touch with Jeff. Jeff had asked me, somebody from Kerala had got in touch with him about a year back. He wanted to take out a Malayalam edition, so he asked me about it.
Because I was speaking with some students in Gujarati now. We would like to have some book in India at least in Hindi now. Like we are looking for somebody who could do this work.
Hindi?
In Hindi, yes.
So you don't have.
No, it's already there in Hindi.
No, but now the new books.
The notebooks are published in English by Motilal.
Yeah, no, I say the notebooks and the many books, for example, we publish in these few years, many books, collection of books of Paul Brunton, like in Portuguese. If you could have these, small books in Hindi, is an important diffusion, because, for example, people know practically the search in India. But look, after that, PB wrote 9 books and also 16 volumes
So look,
of the notebooks,
It's really serious 16 volumes. Most people don't want to study so hard. But then these
Then
are
we-
little books which are selections from the notebooks.
Yeah.
So these books we feel would
Is
be perfect to
important,
put
you
in
know,
the Indian languages
in
because,
Indian
like you
language.
said, they're less than 100 pages.
You know, because then it's more accessible financially for reading, everything is so much more accessible. We feel that is so important.
From your website, I understand that you are also connected with, cannot pronounce it properly, is a master from Brazil.
Trigueirinho.
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 Trigueirinho, yeah.
And Raphael of Italy.
Yeah.
What is a common thread running through all these gurus
Yeah.
or masters?
Well, the first connection is as we met, because I was coordinating the work of Trigueirinho in Florida, in Miami. Me. I was coordinating.
Trigueirinho.
I was coordinating his work there. When I moved to United States, I met him. I didn't met him before. He was much more into the Karma Yoga, but I wasn't. I'm a Jnana Yoga, but I felt in my heart I want to help his work in North America. And then I became a student and help him in North America. But he is the student of Paul Brunton. You know, he was a student of Paul Brunton. I knew about Paul Brunton in two ways, like through him and through a student I had in Miami. Both presented me Paul Brunton before I met Micha-El.
Where did you meet him?
Yeah, well, first I have to tell you something.
Wait,
then,
let me just say.
The story part.
Yes,
First,
no,
wait,
for you
just
to
let me just say
understand.
one thing. The theme of all these teachers is they're modern Westerners who
Yeah.
present the eternal truth
Eternal
in a
truth.
form that people can understand, like PB.
Yeah.
But each one have a different dharma. Raphael translate all of Shankara into Italian
Yeah.
and then English. Trigueirinho take PB, he take one theme of PB and he make it into a whole book.
Yeah. For example, PB speak only about mind, word mind, and over self. Trigueirinho speak about, all the levels of the human being,
Nandamaya
like
kosha.
kosha, like the soul, the atma, like many levels. That is the difference. And as Micha-El said, Raphael is all the texts of Shankara translate.
With the modern Western presentation, including the similarity between Shankara, Adi Shankara, and Plato.
Yeah.
Because here's another theme. Just like the new Indians don't know their own tradition, Westerners, we don't know our tradition. We have Plato, we have Plotinus.
Parmenides.
We had all this knowledge in the West. We had pujas, we had everything in Christianity.
Neoplatonism.
Christianity
also.
threw it all out.
Yeah.
So we have to bring up the PB says you don't need to become an Indian. You need to become pretend I was an Indian in the last life and I love it here. But I'm born in a Western body. Why? Because I have to be a Western person.
Yeah.
Should we tell how we met?
Okay.
It's a story. Because we are here now in this moment because of PB.
PB and Trigueirinho. Yeah. for
So,
sure.
but in some specific way, Trigueirinho asked to see PB. Because
He was living in Italy in that moment.
He was reading, before he wrote his own books, all his students he gave PB. So they all were PB. So he says, can I visit you? PB says no.
What is the path of philosophy that you have developed?
Adopt now.
Path of philosophy.
Oh, wait, that's
Ah.
our website. First
Yes.
the story.
Okay.
So Trigueirinho asked him again and he says yes. So Trigueirinho
No,
is...
the second he say no.
No, the
yes.
second time he said
Okay,
yes. So Trigueirinho
went
goes
to
from Italy to
Switzerland.
Switzerland to see PB. And my friend is helping PB. And PB says, Trigueirinho's waiting, in a cafe. He says, give him this note, I can't see him.
He
And
say
my
no.
friend says, but PB, he came from so far to see you. And PB's very sweet and calm. He says, it's not the right time. So Trigueirinho goes away. Then he asks again. PB says yes. That was the time I went to take care of PB because of
With
his
the hernia.
With the
When
hernia.
the hernia, the surgery of the hernia, he was there with
Take-
PB when the Trigueirinho arrived
So
in the
Trigueirinho
apartment.
comes in the apartment and I greet the door. I serve them tea. So I met Tigirino in PB's apartment.
Yeah.
So you see how PB arranged my whole destiny. Because if I didn't meet Tigirino, I wouldn't meet her. I wouldn't be sitting here with you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing all of this. So you could say, well, how did he know? We don't know. Maybe he actually saw the future.
Maybe he saw.
Maybe he just in the moment. He knows exactly what is
Yeah.
the right thing in each moment without any thought.
Because that we met, because what happened? Trigueirinho keep in contact with him in some way, and always invite him to go to Brazil, and he never went to Brazil. 20 years passed, and he went to Brazil. I was living
15,
in Miami
but
Beach.
I was slow.
I was living in Miami Beach. I didn't see him. I didn't know about him. I wasn't in Brazil, nothing. But because I was coordinating his work, always they send me the newsletter, you know. And in that moment, I was feeling so strongly. I have to have some group here, like to share some, you know, other center to share. Because once a year I went, it wasn't enough for me. And in the newsletter say, if you wanna visit the Wisdom Golden Road Center, contact Alan.
That's
his name. And I contacted him, and he said, well, I'm going to Miami in a few weeks, like next week or something. And he said, I'm going for a conference in psychology. I said, how interesting. He coming here, he's also a psychologist. I felt so interested. So interesting, the situation. Then his hotel was nearby my hotel where I live.
She could walk to the hotel.
Then in that week they sent me from Brazil like a mantra, because faxing me a mantra. They always faxing me. And I took my mantra
You
and
have a lot of mantras as part of
I took
his
the
work.
mantra and 7 little books from Trigueirinho, and I went to that.
So let me say, so I'm in this conference in this hotel, and the hotel is full. So they put me in the penthouse. That never happened. It has a porch.
For the workshop.
So I meet her in the lobby, and she has her papers and her books. I say, do you want to go sit on the porch? So we go on the porch. There's the ocean, there's the beach. She says, do you want to chant a mantra? Okay. We start chanting the mantra, a double rainbow comes. Two rainbows.
In the moment.
What is going on here?
After that, of course, we continue becoming friends. Like I was in Florida, he was in New York. But you know, we knew that something happened at the meeting beyond our personality, beyond our really, you know. And then after 2 years, we decided like to marriage and to unify the paths. Then we became a publisher from Trigueirinho in United States. We translate his books into English, and we publish. And we became a translator of Paul Brunton into Portuguese, and we publish with we aren't publishing Portuguese, but we collaborate with the publisher. That became our dharma. Like we, isn't amazing?
Somebody asked Tigirino, why are there so many divorces?
Yeah.
He said because people don't have a spiritual dharma together.
Yeah.
So whatever your relationship is, and it's interesting, here's an example of how practical is PB. We went to a wedding in Gujarat. So I went in PB and took all the quotes of marriage that he said. What is a spiritual marriage? What does it mean for a couple to share a spiritual path? And we put it in little papers and we gave it to the marriage people.
We gave it to the couple that married.
So we
they
were,
love the quotes. You know, PB is for everyone. Like.
So, but you have to know how to find it. So we are very blessed because we love each other, we have fun together, but we're not like tourists, we're here as pilgrims in India because we have a spiritual test, we have a dharma together.
Our life is beyond
And then
like
we get
a
to
normal
meet you and you.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Look how it's PB for everyone. We were in the flight yesterday, coming to here from Gujarat. When the flight was later, everything was later. When we came to do the check-in, he upgraded us for the premium economy. He updated us. Upgrade. Then we were in the front, in the plane, in front. In his side was one man him and
this
me.
man?
In the right side, only one person, like Indian, dressing with the skirt, all
He
that,
looked like
you
a
know.
swan.
But he wasn't swan. Then in some moment he asked me from where I come, all these things, and he say, and we started speaking about Sarvapiananda, that I love the Swami. I accompany him all the time because he's a head Vedanta society. I love him. And then when he told me that he was a physicist, I say, maybe he's one physicist that Swami always speak about some physics man. Like he was one of them.
He was one of his teachers.
He was one of his teachers. Then we started speak about Sarvapiananda, and in the left side,
Next to me.
the younger man showed the picture saying, "This is the Swami or speaker." Saying, "Yeah, is my uncle." He started.
What are the chances of this? This
You know,
is all
and
divine.
then I had this book, the Paul Brunton, and I showed to the teacher, the professor.
And he reads the book for the whole flight.
He read this book all
1 hour.
flight,
And
1
start
hour
taking
and a half
pictures of
reading
it.
and asking me to take a picture. That is why I say PB is for PB is for everyone, correct? Look, this physics man who is a professional, who has so much knowledge, you know, and he was reading PB all flights. And now I'm sending to him the books for him. Yeah.
Now your interactions in Dharmashala, Thiruvannamalai, could you please share?
What
Your
about?
experiences in Dharmashala and
Sure. Well, each one is different, but
about your lectures.
Yeah.
we gave
You can
we
see.
gave a lecture in Divine Life Society in Rishikesh. 100 people, because they have satsang event. That was great because they're prepared, they studied, they're open-minded. That was a beautiful thing. That lecture is on our YouTube channel,
You don't find?
Paul Brunton Official. Thiruvannamalai was different because there's different. Some people are very serious, some people are tourists. So some people really loved our talk about PB, and some people even left.
Yeah. PB isn't for everyone, you know. Some people want a mysticism and they want to stay in that feeling, elevated feeling. What for me is great, for sure, you know. But people want to bring us beyond that.
Like in Thiru, there's many people, they just go to all the swamis and they sit there in satsang and they listen, and the swami could be very inspired. But if you want to understand for yourself, you have to think about it. You have to talk to someone about it. You have to say, well, I don't think that's what PB means. He means this. And you say, no, he means this. And we have a discussion, and I go, oh, I understand what you're saying. You have to have, my Anthony said, philosophy is a social activity. So you need a certain context. So it's for those people that we offer PB. Because it's not for everyone. It's like go to a restaurant. You order one thing, I order another. But for sure, PB is really valuable to many people. And at this moment in India, most people know the PB of the past. They don't know what happened since.
Yes.
So we want people to know what happened since, then they could decide if it's something that would be useful to their sadhana.
Yeah, because PB speaks about the balance path, the philosophic star, that we have to have religious veneration, mystical meditation, rational reflection, moral re-education, altruistic services. He says important these 5 points star, like these 5 points to be in balance, because when they are in balance, you touch the overself that is in the center of the star. Then you became integrate, you became in balance. That is why it's important, all these aspects of your life.
Let me give an example. This is a quote about overself, which is what he calls Atman. Because you have to study PB. He says, overself is the inner or true self of the person, reflecting the divine being and its attributes. The overself is an emanation from the ultimate reality, but is neither a division nor a detached fragment of it. It is a ray shining forth, but not the sun itself. So you can't just say, oh, I understand that. You have to, what does it mean? It's not a division of, Atman is not a division of Brahman. Atman is not separate from Brahman. But even though Atman is Brahman because they're both light, the sun is bigger than the ray of the sun. Right? He says it's a ray shining forth. This is rational reflection. Maybe you know, this goes back to your question about practical life. You write this on a little piece of card, and while you're waiting for the bus, you read it. And while you're waiting for the train, you read it, and you go, what does he mean by this? That's the only way you could go deeper.
Yeah.
That's the rational reflection. So that's why some people, they're not interested in PB, no problem. They will find what they need.
You remind me something about practical exercises. He speaks about the affirmations. He has a few, like, I don't know how many, 20 something affirmations that you do everyday life, because this help the mind to be aligned with the truth, to, you know, to elevate from the normal activities that put our mind correct, like into the material level. We have to elevate, because how could you go to the concrete mind to the Buddhic mind? You know, you have to practice. You can't go from one day to another if you don't practice every day. How could you go be in the Buddhic mind, where is the intuitive mind? Correct? If you live every day like only in the practical, you know.
Then you pick one. God is ever smiling on me.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I'm depressed. My life is, I lost my job. If God is ever smiling on me, or, you know, I cooperate joyously with the higher purpose of my life.
He did that everyday life, Paul Brunton.
Is
that the declarations or affirmations, and is in perspectives. There are 27 affirmations, phrases.
So the point is that's how you do a practice with his writing.
And this is inspired, correct, in this Christian. He is inspired in that to practice Jesus, I am.
Oh
Jesus
no,
Christ.
she's talking about in the Orthodox Christian tradition.
Yeah.
They have the prayer of the heart, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner.
Yeah.
And you say it over and over again. So that's a Western form of mantra.
Yeah, but you could use these affirmations
And
in
they
the
say,
same way.
the way they do the prayer, you say, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. You say that 100 times. Then you say, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy. Then you take off the words one by one.
Then keep you only
And then
one.
you go, Lord, and then in the end you just have Jesus, Jesus, Jesus,
Yes,
Jesus.
yes.
And they
The
say it takes you inside.
Yeah.
So the point is, any spiritual teacher is not making anything new, because nothing is new. But they're making a new form, a new presentation.
Yeah. And like the practice and the exercise has to be according, you know, the temperament of each person, and according the time, because sometimes we need something specific now and something else tomorrow, you know, depends in which stage of life the person are. But PB has what he call mystical, ultra mystical exercises and meditation, and we have one book, Short Path to Enlightenment, that has so many exercises for the short path. Many things is available for people interested, you know, to know more about Paul Brunton.
And you asked before, we have our own personal
The path.
website that we created called thepathofphilosophy.org. So that's just our website. So in that website you can find out about Chigurino or Raphael or PB or
Or if
Yogananda
somebody want to ask you,
or somebody.
want more information about Paul Brunton, could contact us. We have YouTube named the Paul Brunton Official also. Paul Brunton Official.
And if someone speaks English, the YouTube Paul Brunton Official has the only recording of PB's voice that exists.
Yeah.
So only to listen to his voice.
It's so important. Yeah.
What is your message to the readers?
I would say my messages to the readers is find a spiritual path that will take you closer to God. Realize that it won't be easy, but that there are many, many benefits that you will feel over the course of your life, and there are many teachers that could help you, and you can decide if PB would be one of those teachers. But for many of us who live in this modern, technological, very fast world, PB is an excellent guide because he came out of that same world and he wrote to us how to have a spiritual life in that world.
I could say practically the same. Keep working hard, keep practicing, keep don't miss the goal, like the proposal of your life. Don't forget who you are and why you are here, because that is the big mistake. And when they say don't forget who you are, means don't let nobody confuse you, because PB said, no, the society aren't give it to you what you need. You have to impose it. For example, you have to impose it to have silence. You have to impose it to have time for meditation. You have to impose who you are, because nobody really will give it to you this, because we are in some modern world that everything is about outside, and we have to have enough time for us. And also don't let nobody confuse the real being we are.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.